I played the role of Ken in All For You. Um, the director, Mike, came to me and just asked me if I wanted to be involved with an improvised film project. I've done a little bit of improv before, so I was definitely down. And I've done some film, but going into it, I wasn't quite sure what to expect. Each day was pretty interesting. Like going into the project and kind of getting yourself into the mood of the character, because you don't have a script to follow, so you have to um, kind of prepare by looking into yourself instead of looking at the words and rehearsing the lines. The cool part about it is that it was during the college semester, so I didn't really have a whole lot of time to learn lines. So, in a way, that made it easy that I didn't have to go by a script. But it also made it kind of awkward at times coming up with lines, especially because the situations were so awkward, and there were a lot of situations that I've never had to go through before. So there was a lot of, a lot of that. When you have lines, you can just think of your own lines and not really listen to the other person. You should not do that, but it's really, really easy to do that. When you don't have lines, it's kind of impossible not to listen to what the other person is saying. Even if your character is supposed to be ignoring that person, you should at least be listening in the actor's head so you know exactly what you're ignoring. So you cannot ever shut out the person. And you shouldn't do that anyway, but without a script it just made it so much easier. I've mostly done improv comedy. I haven't done a lot of actual dramatic improv. So this was actually my first experience with that. With improv comedy, comedy often comes from a place of agreeing with somebody. Whereas drama usually seems to me to come from a place of disagreeing with somebody. So, the old rule of comedy, yes, and whereas with dramatic acting, it seems to be more of an argument. Yeah, you have to agree with what the actor is doing, but you don't have to agree with what the actor is saying. So if the actor is giving you something like I'm angry or I'm whatever, you have to react off of that. So you, the actor, have to agree, but the character doesn't necessarily have to. At least that's where I'm coming from. Because I didn't actually know what was going to happen until you told me, right before, and you told me right before we shot pretty much, or on the car ride to the location, which was usually this house. And it was awesome because the only research I was able to do really outside of thinking about homelessness or whatever, the only research I was able to do about the character was on the spot pretty much. So, but you did give us character outlines before we started filming. So we had to kind of get to know our characters before we started shooting. Normally how I prepare a role is I look at the lines and I analyze the character through the lines. With this I couldn't really do that as much since I didn't actually know the lines before we started. Also, I wasn't really sure exactly what you were doing because, you weren't able to go through it with us quite as much. So I was just doing my thing, and I was able to be in my own world and in the other co-star's world, or co-actor's world. And I wasn't really thinking about what you guys were doing, like, okay, it's time for my close-up now, or whatever, because I had no idea what you guys were doing. And it kind of helped, at least with this particular film, to just be able to be in the world. If you get into the mindset, you can put whatever you're feeling into, if you know the character well enough, you can put whatever you're feeling into the character. Not to totally dominate the character, but if you're feeling unease, and it's an uneasy situation, then you can bring that to the role. It's kind of liberating, You get to just forget about that part, that it's like you have to be here. There wasn't set blocking. There was one time when, actually this was when we were filming, when we just went on and on and on. And eventually Kristen just said, do you want a glass of water? And so we left the scene, came down here, and you guys were still filming us. And that could not really happen if we had a set environment that we had to be in. I think for a non-actor, not having the script would really helps them, and having a script might really hurt their performance. For somebody that's done a lot of acting, it might just all be in the head. It might not be a whole lot different, but you would know in your head what you were doing, and that knowledge would make you feel. If it was not a comfortable scene, you might feel a little more comfortable knowing what everything that you were doing was intentional. But if it's not a comfortable scene and you don't know what you're doing, then you feel uncomfortable as the character, but also as yourself, because you don't know what's going to happen next. Of course, in acting, you never really know what's going to happen anyway. But this just took that whole idea to a whole new level, because I really had no idea. You would tell us our objectives, you tell us things to say, and we wouldn't know that the other person was going to say that. That was intense at times. I loved that. I mean, there are times when you draw the line. If you're going to say, draw a knife and stab the other person, that person should know that the other actor is going to do it. But if it's all verbal, throw it at me, Sure. I like being pierced by words. I never actually said anything personal, but while you were in the character's mind, you did have that, those 5 seconds where you were where you actually thought, did I cut too deep there? When I said something that I thought was really cool, I would feel really cool because, it came from me. And when I said something that I thought was really stupid or mean, I would have that moment where I was like, wow, what did I just do? And vice versa, if somebody threw something at me to react off of. With a script, you know what's going to happen, so that shock, it's there if you really work at it, but it doesn't come quite as easily.